Wake up, America. What are you waiting for? I'm Jessica Denson, and this is Lights On. We have got a powerhouse show for you today. I am joined by my two good friends, activists in the fight, Carlos Álvarez Aranyos, founder of American Opposition, and of course, you know, Cliff Cash, accidental activist, he's calling himself now, but we had the largest single protest to date a couple weeks ago on the National Mall. Another major protest coming up just this Sunday that Cliff and Carlos are going to tell you about. My friends, this is an extremely, extremely serious time. I don't have to tell you, you see what is going on. Democracy is going up in flames before our eyes. And if we think that we can wait 1 second to combat this and stop this, we are gravely mistaken. Now, before I bring in Carlos and Cliff, I'm going to show you a few clips just to highlight the urgency of the moment. But before I do that, this is not to make you afraid. Before I do that, I want to tell you something that I think Cliff and Carlos are going to agree with me on, and that is that being in this fight makes it so you frankly don't have time to be afraid. You are so consumed with the work and taking your stand, taking your power, that the fear, frankly, just there's no room for it in your life. And I'm going to share at the end of the show some comments from people who watched and attended the last major protest we had, just so you can understand what an empowering exercise it is to be involved right now. I always describe it as an honor, an incredible honor to flip from the dire prospects of what it seems like this moment is to the sense of opportunity and gratitude to be living in this moment in history and not let these destructive, authoritarian, evil, fearful, frankly, cowardly forces win. What an opportunity to beat them. We don't have any time to waste. We have to do it now. I want to share with you, we've been consumed this week with a Signal chat scandal. And it's like, yeah, no shit, these people don't know how to use secure communications. We've got a sexual predator, alcoholic running the Department of Defense, a puppy killer running the Department of Homeland Security, a bunch of loyalist Russian assets enabling the illegal president of the United States. Shocker that they're not using secure communications to communicate with each other when they're launching bombs on civilians. But some of the stories that have been a little bit too low key this week, and one of the major subjects of today's episode is what the media is covering and not covering, is just how serious the assault on human rights is already in this country. And they're starting with immigrants, but it's not going to end with immigrants. I'm going to show you two clips. Here's one from DW, the German broadcaster, talking just about what a unbelievable experience tourists, legal tourists with legal visas to travel, are having in this country right now.
Intended as a short vacation turned into a nightmare. German tourist Lukas Silaf was detained upon arrival in the US and hauled into a detention facility.
They put me in chains everywhere, around my stomach, on my hands, my feet. Then they put me in a van and drove me to the detention center in Satenko.
Lucas was returning to the U.S. from a vacation in Mexico. He says he had a valid U.S. tourist visa, but ended up spending 16 days in detention before being allowed to return to Germany. Canadian actress Jasmine Mooney has a similar story. She was detained for 12 days over an incomplete visa.
There was no heads up. Next thing you know, I'm taken, and for 2 weeks haven't been told anything, moved in different cells, sleeping on cement, sleeping in different jail cells. Like, it just, nothing makes sense to me.
A French scientist, in turn, was denied entry into the U.S. after his phone was searched by customs. Officials at the airport found messages criticizing the Trump administration's cuts to science programs. All deportees say they did not violate U.S. immigration policies nor commit any crimes.
We've seen cases where people's phones have been searched. They've looked at people's social media posts and used that as a basis for denying them entry or arresting them or detaining them. Customs and Border Protection, immigration and customs enforcement agents are under incredible pressure from the White House to increase detentions, arrests, and removals by any means necessary. And that means no one is off the table, including people who are entering the country legally, who have valid authorization to enter the United States.
All right, so they are clearly thinking outside of the box on how to steamroll democracy, break laws, violate the rights of legal visitors to this country. Citizens already are coming up against the illegal overreaches of this administration. I would just like to, one thing that guy said at the end, that ICE agents and Border Patrol agents are under immense pressure. I would just like to remind every single person who is working for the federal government right now that they are working under an illegal administration, an administration that is disqualified from having that office, from issuing any order that comes down from Donald Trump or his administration is de facto illegal because of his status as an adjudicated insurrectionist and his disqualification under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. We need to start thinking out of the box, and the people with federal jobs need to start thinking out of the box as to how to resist and not obey illegal orders. It must start in every creative possible legal way right now. The only ones thinking outside of the box can't be the criminals, the terrorists, the authoritarians. We, the people with the constitutional power and the law on our side, need to start thinking outside the box, honoring our oath and doing really brave and courageous things to do that. Cliff has been saying we are the flood. We're not just the flood out in the streets. We're also the flood in those federal buildings, in the military, in positions of federal law enforcement. If enough people stand up and refuse to obey illegal orders in those positions where they have sworn an oath to the Constitution, we could change this calculus very quickly. And everybody who is following any kind of order from this illegal administration right now, I hope they are seriously considering their own complicity in the destruction of our democracy right now. I know it's not easy. God, I know it is not easy, but it is deadly serious that we all do our part right now and not be complicit in this. I'm going to play this next clip from an influencer he goes by the name Quadzilla. I think his name is Jack Jones. I heard that Cliff connected with him today. I listened to the entirety of this clip. I'm going to play like a 2-minute version of it. And it really literally brought me to tears earlier. This guy has got it right. He has got it right on the moment we're living in and how serious it is for us to take action right now.
With rage and fear for what this country is becoming, because I just watched a video where these ICE agents, not in uniform, they have masks over their faces. They drag this young woman student here on a valid student visa. They drag her away to God knows where. And this concerns me greatly because I have lived through this before. I was 2 years old in China when thousands of unarmed protesters were mowed down in the streets by the Chinese army. Tiananmen Square has defined my life. When I was 21, I joined the U.S. Army as an infantryman so that I could have the skills to resist a tyrannical government. I have continually served this country, first as an infantryman, then on Conservation Corps crews, building and maintaining trails. And I feel such a need to serve because I know what it is to live without freedoms. I know what it is to live under an authoritarian regime. I know what it is to have the fear that secret police will kick down your doors and drag your loved ones away to a secret black dark hole where you will never see them again. I know and I have experienced and I have lived through tyranny firsthand, and what I am seeing right now is tyranny rising its head in the United States. We do not have any more time to wait. If you are waiting for the smoking gun, you have waited too long. The blatant disregard for the court systems, the firing of generals and inspector generals and judges and anyone who can stand in their way, filling all of the top positions with their cronies, their completely unqualified cronies. This is what an authoritarian does first. Next is the violence. Right now, they are arresting immigrants because immigrants have less protections under the law. You can label them as Hamas terrorists and Venezuelan gang members, and most people will be unsympathetic. But what they are doing is they are building the infrastructure right now to arrest political dissidents, U.S. citizens, to make anyone that stands against their regime disappear into a black hole. We only have a window of a few months. Right now, this is the critical moment. This is the moment. If you are waiting for the moment that they shoot people in the streets, if you're waiting for the moment that they declare martial law, for the moment that they invade Greenland and Canada and Mexico, you will have waited too long. I have seen this movie. I have read this book. I have lived through this in my own life. I am telling you, this is what is going to happen. Wake up, America. We need to rise up right now in the streets, in the millions. Flood every city. Flood Washington, D.C. Flood all of these detention centers. Get these people released. If we sit back and allow this, it will be you next. It will be me next. I swear an oath to defend the Constitution from all enemies, foreign and domestic, and I intend to uphold that oath. And I'm calling on all veterans right now to speak up, stand up, and let them know that you will defend this nation against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Wake up, America. Time is running out.
Yeah, wake up. So we are doing that. We are flooding the streets. It's been such a beautiful, incredible movement to be part of with all of you. As I've said before, you know, this is not a show. Lights On is a movement. If you're not already subscribed, please subscribe where you're watching this to the Jessica Denson YouTube channel. The purpose, as always, when I put on a show, I've always got something to tell you to do, or I wouldn't do it at all. And today we have very important things to tell you to do and how you can get involved in this fight and not wait another second. Cliff, back on 314, continued amazing protests, and I was so happy to be there with him and Josh over the weekend, protesting the media, protesting the Heritage Foundation. I'm going to show you just a clip of that because it was, I mean, what we had on the National Mall with the veterans was truly, truly extraordinary. Thousands of people, the patriotism, the energy, the love that day. Something truly historic that I hope you were able to join us for. And if you haven't, please go back and watch the full lineup, which Carlos is part of. A lot of people fell in love with Carlos that day. Watch the full lineup of speakers. You will feel so inspired. You will want to join us again. But we continued on the weekend. Cliff led these amazing protests of the media. I got to tell you, I have never seen anything like it. It was so raw and real, and the people were so there. I'm just going to play a short clip before I bring in Cliff and Carlos to tell you about what's coming up next. This is from 315 in front of Fox News and MSNBC. So happy to be joined by my friends, Cliff Cash, Carlos Álvarez Aranyos. Welcome, guys. So happy to have you here.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
So, Cliff, I know you have a major announcement that both of you are involved in. So let's just start off by telling everybody what's going on this weekend.
So I've got sort of a multi-part plan, and I won't list it all for the sake of time, but one of the biggest parts of that multi-part plan is to apply pressure to the media. So just based on that clip we just watched from the hiker slash veteran dude that was talking about how quickly this fascism is taking hold. One of the first symptoms of fascism taking hold of a country is the media being silenced. And we're already seeing, I mean, Fox News and Newsmax have been lying for a long time, but we're seeing other media that have typically been at least, honest enough, at least relatively reliable for some version of the truth. They're failing to report on protests, nationwide protests, and they're kind of failing to just call things out for what they are. So part of my multi-part plan is putting pressure on the media, which is the clip that Jessica just showed you. So this Sunday, we're going to do it again. We're going to be back at Fox News in DC. We're going to be at CNN in Atlanta at the Techwood campus. We're going to be at Newsmax in Boca Raton, Florida. And we're going to be in New York City at Fox News and their main headquarters. And the idea of this is, they're scared of Donald Trump. Some of them are completely beholden to him, but even the more neutral or more left-leaning ones are now scared of him. My message to them is Donald Trump won't send 10,000 people a week here, but if you keep ignoring our protests, I'm going to do everything in my power to send 10,000 people a week here. And so we really need big numbers. That's not the only plan, but it's a part of the plan. Continued pressure on the media. You're either with us or you're against us. You're either going to cover these protests and tell the truth, or you're going to be an actual enemy of the people, which is what Donald Trump's been calling you for years.
Yeah, I watched a video you put out a couple nights ago, and actually, Carlos knows this because I've been in this fight with Carlos for a while now. But you talked about how when people are shadowed and ignored, they can only take it for so long. And we're not promoting violence for a second, but that's when it turns to violence. I have been shadowed and ignored for years in my fight as a woman, combating this lawlessness in the courts, and it resonated with me because I have known that it's not just been painful to me on a human level to be ignored and shadowed. It has been destructive to the American people who could have seen my example, seen a person to connect with, and said, oh, look, she did that. I can do that too. And that's why people need to see other people in the streets. That's why we need to see each other. That's why we need to see this energy and this love and this resistance and people rising up. When you're hiding us, you're hiding that connection and that spark that encourages other people to do the same and let the world know, no, we're not standing for this.
100%. And I said this on a video the other day too. If every person that actually opposes this administration, every person in the red town, in the small southern town, on the dirt road, if everybody was honest and vocal, every person was honest and vocal, he would have gotten 10% of the vote. Because if all the people that love him truly understood how many people around them actually hate him, and those people were speaking up and posting on social media and speaking up in person and putting a sign in their yard and putting a sticker on the car, if people were really being brave and vocal, popular opinion would have already shifted so much that he wouldn't have gotten into office, and or he'd already be out by now. So what we need is for every American to be brave. Be brave, because it's like the Uvalde shooting. When that happened, a bunch of cops stood outside the building for over an hour, even though they had guns, while this dude murdered children. And right now, our Congress is standing outside the White House doing nothing. And the citizens, until we fill the streets and shut down cities, we are standing outside the building doing nothing. And I refuse to do nothing.
You refuse to do nothing. I refuse to do nothing. Carlos refuses to do nothing. He came out from some comfortable living to form American Opposition. We used to work together when I was a client of Protect Democracy, and he was the strategic comms director there. And we have reunited in this fight. He was one of the bang out speakers on 314. And I know he's going to be part of this media protest in DC. Tell us what you're doing on Saturday, Carlos. I think you're muted right now.
Yeah, sorry, guys. Yeah, no, I think first I want to go back to what Jessica was talking about being ignored. I think we're in a moment in this situation where those of us who are standing in the middle of this fight feel like we're screaming into the wind. And a lot of that is manufactured by the media and by their ability to ignore us, not just ignore us, but separate us from each other and segment us. And it leaves us, again, feeling lonely despite being a majority. And I think Cliff and what he's doing, I think Jessica and what you've done is a lot about bridging those divides and generating shows like Lights On are generating more views than a lot of the cable news stuff and et cetera. I think we have to do infill, but we also have to get the media to finally reflect their role, not just in terms of our society, but also their role as resonance for us as people, right? Telling our story, sharing our culture, those narratives, how we talk to each other, what we say, how we convince each other. In a democracy, if we're not having a conversation, how are we arriving at an answer that is a negotiated answer in the way that we're supposed to be? All of those questions are kind of out there right now for us, and And I think a huge part of that is unlocking this blockade that the media is putting up to what we're doing. I mean, when I started American Opposition, I was angry, and I wanted to be heard. And I put out a call for a national day of protest on February 5th. Everybody showed up, and then we did it again on President's Day. 5051 joined us. The Indivisible joined. It just became a growing movement, and then suddenly we've seen that the media has kind of stepped back and refused to cover it. But the reality is, we're seeing Tesla protests and people boycotting Tesla in historic numbers. We've seen that stock drop 50%. We've seen all of this stuff happen, and it puts us in a situation where there's a giant disconnect between what we're achieving as a movement, which is so far 4 national days of protests, a total economic blackout, the boycotting of Tesla, the pressure we've put on Target. I mean, you're seeing this is historic achievement by any measure.
Yeah.
You think about the Birmingham bus boycott, and that took 381 days. We're on a trajectory to sort of deliver that level of connection for American people, and in an age when it's harder, right? Because people are more siloed, especially coming out of the pandemic. So I think we have an opportunity to continue to grow the movement, but the mainstream media is going to have to, start reflecting the will and the stories and the culture of a people who are angry, who are activated, who are joining in mass numbers. And it's funny because for all of the other protests, and I usually speak at them, and my neighbors will tell me that they saw me, et cetera. For this one on April 5th that 5051 is doing with Indivisible nationwide, all of them are telling me that they're planning to show up. And I'll be speaking at the one in Denver. And so we're seeing a change where this movement is actually penetrating really at the grassroots level in a way that I've never seen before. And the fact that we're being silenced by the media or ignored by the media is insane, frankly, because it is the biggest story in the country. And so if your motive is profit, and if your motive is ratings, which that wasn't the original design of the media's role in our government per the founders, but it is now. But if you're interested in getting ratings, talk about the characters on this call. Talk about how Cliff Cash, a comedian and a guy who didn't want to be here, suddenly has to be here and show up, and then generates works with Jessica, who was a single human army against Donald Trump that achieved more by herself than most institutions who ever fought him. You talk about me and just crazy life and somebody that's not really supposed to be here. And yet I have direct experience fighting Donald Trump in 2020. I'm back again, doing it again. There's a cast of characters here. There's 5051, a decentralized group of protesters across the country. Indivisible, Ezra and Leah, former congressional staffers trying to figure out how to use grassroots to motivate congressional action and get the Democrats on board. These are extremely interesting stories. It's an extremely interesting cast of characters. And if you're not telling this story, our story, the American story, then you're really not being our media. And so we need to figure out why the media is so broken and why they won't tell the stories that need to be told right now.
Yeah, well, when you're talking about a cast of characters, I'm thinking about, we kind of think of the media as these entities, but they're people. There are people running these institutions. Like, I went to school for journalism because I love truth. And actually, here's an interesting fact about the cast of characters on your screen right now. We're all artists. I'm an actor. Carlos was a screenwriter. Cliff's a comedian. We all come to this, I think, with a love of the arts and a love of performance and entertaining. For me as an actor, I always related my love of journalism and my love of arts because to me, they were both a pursuit of truth. Like, without that, neither of them has any value or any veracity to them. So, these people, a lot of them, they started off in journalism school. They started off with the right intentions. These are people, booking producers, segment producers, people. I just want to get through to these people working in those buildings at CNN, at Fox News, even at Newsmax, even the ones that are so entrenched in this propaganda. Like you, my friends, your soul is being stained by the work that you are doing or not doing, the stories you are covering or not covering right now. At the end of the day, you don't have to answer to your senior producer or your boss at that network. At the end of the day, you have to answer to something much deeper and much higher. And history is going to be written about the decisions that you're making right now.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's all fear. I mean, I don't think I know. And so you can just kind of imagine them behind the scenes saying, "Hey, everybody, we're going to have a staff meeting." 6 weeks ago, 2 months ago, whatever, and saying, "All right, here's the deal. We these are the things we can talk about. These are the things we can't talk about. They're threatening us. They're threatening lawsuits. This news company already settled. This news company paid this amount. These social media companies paid this amount towards his inauguration. We don't want lawsuits. We don't want to be investigated. Blah blah blah." And maybe that meeting ended with just sit tight and let's see what happens. I don't know. I wasn't there, but I'm just imagining that they don't love Trump. CNN employees don't like Trump. You know what I mean? Like most of these people who went to journalism school are progressive people because they're educated, and that's how you get progressive is you get smart, and then it happens. It's just a natural side effect. If you read enough books, and eventually you go, oh, maybe Jesus wasn't white, and I'm going to stop voting against myself. But they're ignoring us reluctantly. They are sane washing and normalizing what's happening reluctantly. They don't want to do it. They're on our side. They're scared. And my message to them, and I don't mean this as a physical threat, I mean this as a sort of existentially an abstract way. Don't be scared of a 79-year-old dementia patient wearing a diaper. Be scared of tens of millions of Americans becoming so pissed off at you that we stop tolerating that you're ignoring us, because that could be much worse than a lawsuit or whatever. You don't want to be in your building and a mob come to your building. But the American people aren't going to stand for the media becoming state-run media and sane washing a mentally ill psychopathic dictator. We're just not going to. So you can get on our side now, or it can be really terrible and then you can get on our side. But one way or another, you're either going to be on the wrong side of history or you're going to join us after you can no longer stomach what you're doing.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing is that it's not even just about stomaching it. I mean, the challenge with this fear is that it actually leads to the outcome you don't want, because it delays your reaction. And tyranny only grows when you do nothing. The only wrong answer here is nothing, right? If you do nothing, we end up with Donald Trump as our dictator. So do something. And something can mean anything, by the way. You don't have to come out and protest with us if that makes you too afraid. You can still call your congressman. You can still try to activate Democrats, because, by the way, what we're seeing with the media, we're also seeing with Democrats. What we're seeing in this country is small people behaving like small people. And ultimately, these people elected to be in these positions. When you go to journalism school and you become a reporter, you are choosing a set of ethics and that tell you that you play a role in the design of our constitutional system, and that if you don't fulfill your role, you're going to leave a void, and that void is going to be filled. We all learned about the Iron Triangle and all of that when we were in high school. And so ultimately, these roles are required. You don't have a choice. If you're a member of Congress and you're a Democrat, you have to do your job, because if you don't, that void is filled by power. And ultimately, Donald Trump right now is counting on these people. We've seen a lot of law firms recently back away from their legal duties. And these are lawyers, by the way. They're destroying the rule of law under which they operate. They are destroying the legal system under which so they're kicking their own asses. Yeah. And ultimately, we're seeing that in the media. We're seeing it with Democrats in Congress, and obviously with Republicans in Congress. And we're seeing it with the legal profession right now. And one by one, these dominoes fall. And individually, these sectors feel, perhaps if you're at a law firm that just gave up, you might feel, we're just doing what's good for our business. We're protecting ourselves. But you also have to acknowledge that you're an office. Lawyers are officers of the court for a reason. They represent more than just themselves or their clients. They represent for the legal system. Journalists are not just beholden to their bosses. They're beholden to a profession and an ethics and, Murrow and all of this legacy of what it means to be American media and what it means to hold American officials accountable. Members of Congress are beholden not just to their parties, but to their oaths, right? And we see that in the military as well. And so these are macro constructs under which you've chosen to operate if you're in any of these businesses. And the fact that every single area we're seeing people reject those oaths, reject those responsibilities, actively capitulate without even trying, by the way, which is, I mentioned that in my speech at the mall for your protest. They're losing without trying, which is the really frustrating part. Because imagine where our movement would be if the Democrats were calling for people to join our protests and join our boycotts. We'd be done with Tesla and onto Target and close to being onto Amazon. Cliff would have 10,000 people a day at Fox News if that were happening. And the fact that the Democrats are so afraid, that everybody's so afraid, guess what? We're all carbon. We're all on this planet for 80 years. We have to make the best of it. If I give up my life for this cause, I will have died for something worth believing in and worth doing. And ultimately, if you're a piece of carbon that you think is so special that you can ignore what's happening here and not be subject to it, trust me, you're going to end up in a far worse place at the end of the day, because you won't be able to look at yourself in the mirror, let alone look at your children in the eyes. This is our moment right now to say, look, we're all inherently equal. We are all Americans. We can all do something, and it doesn't all have to be what we do, standing in front of audiences or getting death threats or whatever, but we can show up for each other, and we can make this thing make this country better, get it to the next election. And then in the next election, tell these people once and for all, like they're seeing, by the way, in all these special elections and in the polls and everywhere, these people are going to lose big, but we have to deliver that. That doesn't just happen. And I think a huge part of this is that this country is super spoiled. This generation has never experienced it going wrong and then not correcting it. This country is always correcting. I grew up in the Dominican Republic under an elected fascist, and it didn't correct. And I would see people get shot in the back of the head, thrown in a pickup truck, and disappeared. And that was that. And trust me, we are very close to that. And nobody would like that as an outcome. And all it takes to avoid that is showing up.
Yeah.
Bravery.
Just show up. Yeah, exactly. When I launched American Opposition, I just said, remember to be brave, guys. Remember to be brave, because once you're brave, you're actually in community with other people who are being brave. And trust me, no better place to meet people and hang out with people and get to know people than at one of our protests. No better place on earth.
Yep, absolutely. I was thinking, but you're talking about Democrats. Anybody who watches my show or came to the protest and heard me speak or anybody else speak knows that I have no patience for the lack of fight in the so-called pro-democracy space and those who are posturing themselves as being on our side and not actually doing the work. I want to acknowledge something that started last Friday when we were live on this show, and that is those massive rallies by AOC and Bernie Sanders. And hey, it's great. It is beautiful to see tens of thousands of people out for these rallies. I just think when you're talking, Carlos, about we're almost at the point of people getting thrown in the back of pickup trucks, if they maybe need to use those rallies to start advocating more extreme constitutional remedies right now, like removing this administration from office and not just, healthcare and the oligarchy. We need to be thinking outside the box. And I wish, were using that massive platform to join someone like Representative Al Green in demanding that Donald Trump be removed from office. Where is the extreme constitutional action and messaging from the stars of the Democratic Party?
Yeah, and I want to say this real quick too. I've been thinking about it a lot, and I haven't really said it publicly, but I think a lot of people, sort of in line with what Carlos was saying, is as Americans, we're sheltered and privileged. We haven't seen wars in our streets. We think because it's never happened that it can't happen, and we're wrong. The stuff you see on the news, or you used to see on the news, the images you see out of Gaza, the images you see out of Ukraine, that can come here, and it will come here if we allow it to. And while we talk about all these issues, and they all matter, and I'll fight for all of them, and I have been my whole adult life. I'll always fight for gay rights. I will always fight against racism. I will always fight for income inequality and the environment. All of these issues, and they're all scary, and any one of them should be enough to mobilize intelligent citizens in this country. But put all of them aside for a minute, because there's one issue that rises to the top that just sort of throws a shadow on all the other issues, and it's this. Donald Trump is a Russian asset. It's not hyperbole, it's not exaggeration, it's not melodrama. He's a Russian asset, and he has been for a very long time. And his foreign policy looks the way it looks because Vladimir Putin is writing it. And he's not just a Russian asset in this sort of standalone way. He's a Russian asset in the context of the BRICS nations. So even when you look at an action that he's taken and say, well, I don't see how that necessarily benefits Russia. Well, how does it benefit Russia's allies? Because if you go and if let's say you're a French asset, well, then your actions would also maybe benefit the UK and Switzerland and Sweden and other members of the European Union. His actions almost all are benefiting the BRICS nations. And for the people that think that they're going to somehow avoid the wrath of fascists by keeping your head down and being quiet and not making any fuss, I want to remind you of these prosecutors in the Alvin Bragg case, or not Alvin Bragg, the Mayor Adams, two very different people. I'm just thinking about New York people, but the Mayor Adams case where they asked this prosecutor, this Trump-appointed far-right prosecutor, you need to dismiss these charges. And she said,
she wouldn't do it. Yep.
No way, I won't do it. You must have thought I was a coward or an idiot or something like that. Well, then they took all those prosecutors and put them in a room. I think there was 10 of them. And they said, decide which of the 10 of you is going to dismiss these charges or you're all losing your job, which is illegal. But they did it. And one person said, okay, I'll do it. And now 6 of those 10 have already lost their jobs. So they're going to threaten you with something and you're going to go, well, I don't want to, I'm going to be good because I don't want to face that threat. They're going to destroy you no matter what. And to the people that are rich and privileged and white and Republican, and you think, oh, I'm on the team. I'm on the team. No, you're not. Yeah. There are 1,000 rich people in Russia that get to do what they want to do and nobody else. So unless you're in the top 1,000, they will take everything you have. It doesn't matter. Vladimir Putin became, people say Elon Musk is the richest man on earth, and he's not. Vladimir Putin is. And the reason he is because he took all the assets of that country. He centralized power. He took all the resources, all the natural resources, and then he jailed the richest man in Russia, who was one of the richest men in the world. He jailed him and took all his stuff. So if you think being white and rich and on their team is going to save you, I assure you it's not. So you better join us while you still can, while we're still willing to welcome you aboard.
Yeah, white and rich or a Donald Trump supporter at all. I mean, my story is one of many cautionary tales to anybody that thinks that being on that side is going to protect you. As I always say to MAGA and Trump supporters, there will come a time, it is simply a matter of time, before that moment comes when your interests, your livelihood, your well-being conflicts with his interests and his livelihood and his prosperity and wealth. And when that moment comes, you will be thrown under the bus. So we are actually, you think we're against you, we're for you, we're all in this together. Why don't you stop being a dupe and a sucker for this guy now and come over and join the resistance, because they're not looking out for you.
Well, yeah, but there's also, I want to mention one thing, and Jessica, you touched on it, which is, I mean, AOC and Bernie, I went to the rally in Denver because I wanted to see what it was all about and feel the energy. And sadly, and I don't want to, you know, it's tough to call out people who are on your side, but sometimes you have to do it, especially early in the movement, to make sure we get on the right track. They had a huge amount of people show up, and then I heard AOC sort of celebrating other Democrats in Congress who frankly haven't earned it, just because she's still part of that ecosystem and that structure, the party. And frankly, I will say this. If we're going to succeed here, we're going to have to get rid of our adherence to party loyalty. And that doesn't just go for members of Congress who need to activate themselves, and they need to, I mean, Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer are the problem as much as the Republicans are the problem, because they're standing in the way of real progress. And these are not tough decisions that they need to make. They just don't have the guts to make them. But then there's a second order problem, which is that also then all of these political nonprofits, the 501c3s and C4s, organizations like Protect Democracy that I worked for previously, have largely stayed out of this fight. For the first time during the April 5th protest, the League of Women Voters is going to join. And hopefully that gives people, other organizations of that ilk permission for them to feel like they can finally join this movement. But guess what? You're all too late already. Yeah. You need to get off the couch and get off the sideline. If you're still on the sideline on this, what else do you need? We already have concentration camps. Those have included U.S. citizens. They're already revoking visas by the hundred, revoking green cards or looking into it. Detaining people regardless of their immigration status, detaining people without even showing them a warrant or a badge or anything, as we saw in the video you showed. So we keep moving the goalpost to avoid the fight because we're too lazy perhaps for the fight, or we're too scared for the fight. But if we stop moving the goalpost, we crossed the lines a long time ago.
Yeah.
We have crossed every line that matters. And people talk about, Chuck Schumer moved it to whether he ignores a Supreme Court order. Guess what? The Constitution doesn't consider a district judge more or less important than a Supreme Court justice, at least in the sense that all of those orders are supposed to be followed without question. And the fact that we're sitting here creating differentiations of court orders that need to be followed or don't, that's already means that our system is beyond repair. And so when are we going to wake up? When are we going to activate ourselves? When are we going to show up? When are the people that promised to show up at this moment, when are they going to show up? And when are corporations going to show up? By the way, American opposition has had a very difficult time raising money, partly because Democratic donors are mad at Democrats, so they don't want to give generally. The fact that our movement and what we're doing is struggling because others have refused to join this, it means they're holding us back. So the Democratic Party and its failures has an impact on us. The fact that other groups that are 501c3s and C4s, the people that said they were going to fight, haven't shown up, that keeps people away as well. So these structures that protect the mainstream are having a huge impact on us who are at the front lines. And my main message, if you're a Democrat, if you're a member of an organization, of a political organization, what you're not doing is kicking our asses. So please stop not doing it. And get out, either show up or get out of the way and be explicit about it. What are you going to do now? What are you going to do next month? Tell everybody so that everybody's clear on who you are and what you're made of and where you're going to show up or not. And so that hopefully that unlocks resources for us. Because right now there's people giving money to groups that are doing absolutely nothing. Nothing. And the money would be much better used by us building a national billboard campaign to explain to regular Americans in red states just how much Donald Trump is costing them every single day. That's something I want to do that costs $3 million. I need $3 million to do that. And right now, some other group is getting $3 million because they have lawyers that are writing an article on, what it might look like in 3 years. Well, guess what? We're here right now. We're on the front lines. We're getting death threats. We're fighting the good fight. We need people to get either, again, join us or get out of the way. But this is a moment right now where the future of this nation is going to be decided. And it's not a thought exercise. I would trade 20 think tanks for one action tank. And we are the action tank. I see Cliff. Cliff and I live in a lose your voice, recover your voice, lose your voice, recover your voice paradigm. Jessica, no. We have. I think Cliff and I have a particular style to this that's not good for our throats.
You got to go back and watch my speech. I don't think you watched my speech.
Yeah, no, I did. Are you kidding me?
You just know how to use your voice. We're just screaming.
Yeah, we're just.
You know how to breathe.
You're much more disciplined, exactly. But honestly, it's just either people don't show up, We're going to lose, but it's totally preventable. Show up. That's it. Ask us what you need to do. We all have answers for you. Sign up for our newsletters. We all have answers. We have a very clear vision. And by the way, what has already happened, meaning the fact that out of this movement in less than 2 months, we've done as many national protests, as much as we've achieved, 5051, Indivisible, you name them. These groups are all showing up.
Yes.
There's a lot of good guys, but they need help. So show up for the good guys.
They need to be amplified. And that's what the media protest is about, for God's sakes. Amplify the people that are doing something. I just want to address up there in the comments when I brought up AOC and Bernie, somebody said to me, and I get this a lot because I'm shameless in calling out the people who are not standing up, who should be on our side. I'm shameless about calling out the former network that I left that is not coming to this moment and meeting this moment right now while they're putting themselves out there as fearless and independent. I make no apologies for calling them out. In fact, not calling them out is the greatest dereliction right now. We have to call out especially our friends, especially the people who are telling us they're in this fight. And like Carlos said, they're not doing what needs to be done. Join us or get out of the way. I make no apologies, and you shouldn't either if you're watching this, for calling them out. And I said this, way back in the beginning on Midas Touch Network when I was really talking about Trump and why I don't actually hate anybody. Like, if you love somebody, if you care about somebody, if you want them to grow and prosper and be happy, you will hold them to a high standard. We need to hold all of each other to the highest standard right now and have no patience for anything less.
That's right. And the main thing is we can't be immature enough to think that you can't love but criticize.
Yeah, of course.
Because honestly, like the greatest form of love is constructive criticism. And we depend on the Democrats getting activated. This movement almost cannot succeed if the Democrats don't do everything they can institutionally to oppose Donald Trump. And yet, as of 2 days ago, they're still giving him votes. So if we can't call them out while they are still right this minute voting for his people, then what are we supposed to do to get them off the sideline, And by the way, that's an open question. If anybody has a really good answer for it, I'm all ears.
I want to jump in and say this too, just because I want as many people to hear it as possible. Well, you have to understand with these cabinet positions and all the people that are leading all the agencies. I get that it's funny and it seems really reckless and unorganized and chaotic. It's kind of silly that there's a drunk rapist as Secretary of Defense, and it's kind of silly that there's a brainworm heroin addict, conspiracy theorist at HHS. But it's not accidental, and it's not just chaotic. It is, these people are in the positions they're in because the departments that they're over are going to be destabilized. And in order for those departments to be destabilized, stupid, incompetent people have to be the head of them. Stupid, incompetent, and easily compromised people who don't have ethics, who will do whatever they're told if they think they can get a little bit of power and a little bit of money. And so we've got a Russian asset as the head of national intelligence. We've got a drunk rapist and probably Russian asset as Secretary of Defense. What is happening is nothing more. There's no nuance. Everybody needs to understand there's no bigger issue than this. This is Russia taking down our American democracy, the oldest democracy on planet Earth. They are dismantling our democracy one department at a time, and it's working. The other day, one of the head Heritage Foundation dudes said, Project 2025 is happening more quickly and more efficiently than my wildest dreams. And that is a fucking, excuse my language, that is an insult to every single American in this country with an IQ above 80. For him to say, oh man, we are destroying your country and it's happening. It's way easier than we thought it was going to be, because so many of you are sitting on your asses talking, and you're talking about how much you hate Donald Trump while you continue to order shit you don't need and can't pay for from Amazon and other fascist-owned companies. And we're out here trying to talk 1,000 of you to come into our rallies when there ought to be shit. What are we going to do? There's 1 million people coming.
Yeah.
Where are we going to put them? What space can we move to so we can fill everybody in? They are taking down American democracy, and none of it's accidental. I get that it seems incompetent and chaotic and stupid, and it is, because these people are inherently incompetent and chaotic and stupid. But it's not accidental. This is the dismantling of military intelligence, the destabilization of our currency, the destabilization of our trade partnerships, our military allies, the European Union. He is starting conflicts with Canada, Mexico, Denmark, Greenland, and Panama. And all these people that voted for, there won't no wars when Donald Trump was in there. There won't no wars. Well, I don't remember Biden starting conflict with Canada, Billy Bob. Maybe you should try to read a book or learn how there and there work. But every American needs to understand, as much as I'm concerned about Social Security, and I am, because my mother lives off of it. And by the way, I will physically fight for her money if somebody tries to steal it. Just like I would if they stole it from her house, car, or yard. I will physically fight to protect my mother. And if you think I won't, you're mentally ill. And if you think millions of other young men won't also fight for their mothers, you're mentally ill. Because that's what good men do. Good men aren't rapists. Good men aren't pedophiles. Good men aren't con men. Good men will physically fight you for their mothers if you steal from their mothers. But while I'm worried about Social Security and Medicare and all the other things they're cutting and destroying, there's no bigger issue than the fact, and it is a fact, Donald Trump is a Russian asset, and he is helping Russia topple our democracy to implement autocracy that will benefit Russia in the context of the BRICS nations. If you don't know that, you need to learn that. If you think that sounds crazy, you don't know enough information. And you can learn it at donaldlovesvladimir.com. I built a website, and it is the most comprehensive body of information on Trump's ties to Russia that I know of. Please go there.
Yeah, and I'm the top media pointer there, but it says I'm an alt NPS climate site, which is okay. I'm happy that I'm in the top spot. You can describe me as whatever you want.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about the top of our screen. I was like, no, it
No.
says
Go to Donald Loves Vladimir. Go to Join the Resistance. You'll see lights on with Jessica Denson. It says alt NPS climate something, which is fine.
I asked the web designer to put you at the top of the list for the record. I assume she did.
Thanks so much. But yeah.
Yeah, no, but Cliff, you're absolutely right. And it's, whoever the intelligence officer in Russia who came up with this campaign must be getting all of the orders of Lenin that there might be. I mean, honestly, Russia is doing for very little money what their military and their economy and their culture could never do.
Could never.
And they're doing it through a guy who is as self-centered, as narcissistic, as egocentric as you can be. And he's just plug and play. And again, I think Donald Trump as a puppet is a really interesting case study in how there's no amount of self-awareness. You can't tell him that he is that. Even he builds himself a version to continue to serve their interests without fully ever really understanding his role. And by the way, people like Vladimir Putin know how to run an asset. That is a skill set that is built. And the Russians do it really exceedingly well. But what I always tell people is when you think about Russia, think about Ukraine and think about what Ukraine is doing and think about what the people of Ukraine are doing right now, fighting and dying. I was in Georgia in 2008 when the Russians invaded, and I saw that operation with my own eyes. I experienced it in real time. And again, what I want to see in the United States is what I saw in the people of Georgia in 2008, and it's what we're seeing in the people of Ukraine now. Is a total rejection of a world of small people. We want to, by the way, Russia's economy is smaller than Italy's. It's smaller than South Korea's.
Yeah.
Russia is not a big country. It is not a powerful country. That is a fiction. It's a fiction generated by them in much the same way that Donald Trump pumps himself up and sells himself through reality shows, but is generally just the biggest failure in American history. For the 10 years of tax returns that we saw, the guy lost more money than any other American. He is literally the biggest loser in this country. And the reason he won't show you the other tax returns, by the way, is because they show more losses. The guy just won't stop losing. But in much the same way, Russia is a loser country. And it's interesting to me that loser people and loser nations are lining up together to try to go against winning countries and winning cultures and winning people. And honestly, let's be on the side of the winners. Let's be the winners that we've always been historically, because that is who America is. Let's go out and fight our fight and decide how we want to shape our world and our nation and our future. Let's leave a better place for our kids, and let's do something about it. And let's not leave it to the people of Ukraine to do our fighting for us. Let's do it here as well. Let's do it everywhere. Let's make these people feel our heat everywhere they go. And by the way, one more thing. If you see anybody named Trump or Vance or Musk in public, as long as you're not disturbing the peace or doing it in an exceedingly loud or obnoxious way, there is literally nothing to stop you from reminding them that they're Nazis and from making their world less livable. And I encourage everybody here to legally and peacefully remind every member of the Trump family, the Musk family, the Vance family, the Hegseth family, the Rubio family, anybody you see out in the world, remind them that they are serving a Nazi regime and that they're serving Russia and Putin and that they belong in prison and that their legacy in our history will be that of traitors and insurrectionists and people that no one will ever want to have anything to do with. And the Donald Trump Presidential Library is going to be a monument to treason. Don't ever forget that. And his grave will be the biggest porta potty in the history of the world. And we all know that, and we're living it in real time, but we have to do something about it. Otherwise, those people win. And let me tell you something. I wouldn't mind so much if our nation declines naturally, because there are people that disagree genuinely, and those differences can't be resolved. God knows we've had a civil war. We've had strife before. But I would really hate to lose this nation to the dumbest clown anybody's ever been aware of. Like, have we no decency in ourselves to defend ourselves from
Who's
this?
the color of my shirt?
Literally, he's the color of your shirt, Cliff.
An elderly, obese man in a diaper who paints his elderly fat face orange every morning, and whose baby soft hands have never done anything harder than hold a golf club.
He doesn't even know what groceries are. He was remarking on the word groceries. He doesn't know what they are. He's never bought groceries, you know?
So the moral of the story today is, have you no self-respect, America? Have some self-respect. Join us in the streets. I mean, for God's sakes, what a joke. And on the subject of Russia, I have a Russian friend who I'm like, listen, my friend, we're turning into Russia. He's like, no. He's like, the American people are not the Russian people. They're not going to stand for this. So it was very encouraging for me to hear that from him. Let's not be that. Let's be who we are. Let's show up. I also did an interview just this week with Timothy Ryback, the historian who wrote, I'll put it up on the screen here, Take Over: Hitler's Final Rise to Power. And it was just what you were talking about, Carlos. It was searing into the minds of anybody enabling Donald Trump and this illegal administration right now that their legacy will be the legacy of those who were hung at Nuremberg for their complicity. That's it. This is the moment before that. So take 100, your place.
100%. The parallel is direct. What is rising here is what rose there. I will say this. There is one difference. Hitler was obviously the most evil character in history, but he was also competent. He could run and he had discipline, and he could run an organization. We are lucky that Donald Trump is perhaps the most incompetent human being to have ever existed, which gives us a better shot at repelling him, because he's weak, he's stupid, and he doesn't know what he's doing. And he has people in his administration who do know, but he also has an ego the size of Mars, and he won't let them do it properly either. So we caught a break that our tyrant is a moron, but we need to act to diffuse the situation now. Otherwise, we will lose our nation to a moron. And again, one thing is to lose it to somebody with talent who just divides us really intelligently and etc. It would be a real shame to lose this country to somebody who's the color of Cliff's shirt.
So on that note, Cliff, remind us all what we are doing this Sunday and tell us what you're doing on Monday too, because that's really, really important. And I think the veteran theme, we can't let go of this. So leave us with that.
Totally. So I've got kind of a multi-part plan. This Sunday is the media aspect of it, which I'm going to keep doing. But this Sunday at 12 noon, we're going to have protest at Newsmax in Boca Raton. This is all on the website. Here are the locations and times. Newsmax, Boca Raton, Washington, D.C. at Fox News, New York City at Fox News, and Atlanta at CNN. And the idea is to show up with noisemakers, whistles, horns, drums, megaphones, kazoos, cowbell, whatever you got. And we want chants like "Tell the Truth." We want signs that say, "Stop ignoring us. Don't ignore our protest. Report the truth. Don't bend to fascism. Don't be a coward." And I told Carlos, I think since we want to turn the temperature up with each protest, he's going to be leading in DC. I'm going to be leading in Atlanta. We have Julie leading in New York City, and she protests Fox News every Tuesday. She's awesome. She already has an infrastructure. And then I have a group of volunteers in Boca Raton. But I told Carlos, one of the things we should chant outside this time for this protest is "Let us in. Let us in." Just like 1,000 people
Yeah,
yelling,
they put
"Let us
that
in."
tape up. Like they didn't
Or
put their
"Come
cameras out
outside.
there, but they put
Come
that tape.
outside." So that's Sunday. It's all at donaldlovesvladimir.com. You can also get there by typing in wearetheflood.net. It goes straight to the protest page. And then on Monday, I'm going to still be in Atlanta, and I'm leading a veterans town hall. And that's at the Atlanta Comedy Theater. It's all over my social media and all over the website. But we are going to open the floor to veterans, two or 3 minutes apiece, depending on how many we have, to get up on the microphone and on film and say, "I'm a veteran, this is my background, and this is why I oppose fascism and Doge and Russia and the treason that's happening around Ukraine." My process and my action plan is multi-parts. Pressure on the Heritage Foundation, who are the architects of all of this, with Viktor Orban behind them, who has Vladimir Putin behind him. So that's also Russia. Heritage Foundation is also a Russian asset, but they are the people creating all the things you hate. They are the fuel behind Doge. They are the fuel behind all these layoffs and the destruction of Social Security and all the things you hate right now that's happening in this country. And you can't go knock on Donald Trump's door. You can't go knock on Elon Musk's door. But I have good news for you. You can knock on the Heritage Foundation's door, and you should do it every chance you get. So after this weekend, we're going to be at the Heritage Foundation on April 5th, and we're going to surround their building with the biggest crowd they've ever seen. And we're going to make them feel the way they're making the American people feel. We're going to make them feel a little nervous and a little uneasy, and we're going to keep doing it. And my hope is that some of the people who work there will quit, and that they'll build fences around the building, and they'll get more security, and because they need to feel the way that they're making us feel. The veterans thing, we're also making veterans videos. So my goal is I have 10 video editors, and I want each of them to make 10 videos, and each of those videos has 10 veterans. So we're trying to get thousands of these veteran videos out online to flood the airwaves, so the American people can see proud, brave veterans speaking against fascism. Because both partisan, both sides of the aisle need to see and hear that. The left will be emboldened, and the right will be sobered and awakened to the fact that they don't
to
own
add to
patriotism.
that, Cliff, to add to that, we can make an early announcement too, and it's obviously not about this weekend, but it is such a big one that we want to make it early, which is that we have called for and have been joined by the Union Veterans Council at the AFL-CIO, by 5051, and by most of the Vote Vets and other veterans groups, and Cliff and Jessica. Everybody here is connecting around a D-Day anniversary protest nationwide. It's going to be at the World War II Memorial at the National Mall, and it's going to be nationwide. It will be the largest veterans protest in American history. veterans standing up for veterans and uniting for veterans, uniting for democracy. That's the theme. We haven't formally announced it. I mean, we said we were going to do it. Now we're about to do the launch.
I hope you didn't mind.
Right. These things happen super quickly, but
Carlos
it's going to
called me
be
the Monday after 314. And I'm like, okay, we're in.
yeah. These things happen fast, and obviously there's a lot to do. But be ready to show up for Cliff. Be ready to show up for veterans on June 6th, on D-Day, on the anniversary of D-Day. It will be the beginning of the end of fascism in the United States, because veterans are going to say enough is enough. These are the people that have put their lives on the line for us, who are now saying, you can't take away our benefits. You can't take away our community. You can't rob us of who we are and why we matter and what the nation that we love and the nation that we serve, because that oath is for life. And it's going to be an amazing event, March on Washington type historic event. And we're very excited to have called for it and to see everybody lining up to get it done. So we'll see everybody on June 6th. But in the meantime, I'm personally leading Cliff's protests on Sunday in DC. Please come out. If you see me, please say hello. We're going to encourage everybody to speak. So please show up for that. And then the final thing is on April 5th, 5051 in community with League of Women Voters, Indivisible, and a few other groups. They're doing a national day of protest. It's the first one we are not involved in officially, but I'll be speaking in Denver. And obviously we want everybody across the country to show up and make their voices heard and remain peaceful, because again, remember, our power is our persistence. Our power is our patience. Violence it leads to worse outcomes. We are actually much more powerful when we are peaceful, because fascism is war and democracy is peace. And we really need to remember that. The stories of success, Tiananmen Square, Gandhi, etc., the stories of where people have made change, they come from a place of persistent, patient peace, and their force is their rightfulness. And we need to remain rightful, and we need to fight for what we believe in, because this country is not going to save itself, but it is definitely worth saving.
Yeah, there's like 100-year-old article that I love called The New Woman, and it cites a lot of the, women's suffrage efforts, and it talks about how women will overcome oppression with the weapons of peace. So
Right.
you know it, we are coming with our weapons of peace. They are more powerful than any carnal weapons in this world. Thank you very much. And I will be speaking at one of those April 5th rallies, the 5051 nationwide ones. I'll announce that next week. I will also have a high quality live stream of one of Cliff's mass media marches on Sunday. Last time I was in the crowd, and it was very bootstrap kind of, last moment live stream, but I'll have a high quality live stream of at least one of those mass media protests this weekend. So definitely see.
And Jessica's going to be joining me in DC, people. I'm going to tell everybody that. So please come out, because she's going to be there. I'm going to reveal that secret right now. So it's going to be me and Jessica Denson, and we're going to be at Fox News representing
Standing
for
on
Cliff.
top of a truck.
And
Yes.
standing on top of a truck with a
megaphone.
bullhorn. The way this was designed, the aggressive grassroots, guerrilla style protest that we all love, because it connects us with everybody and it connects us with the energy. And I will say this to AOC and Bernie, that's the energy they need to find. And we found it. So come over, join us, please, Democrats, call for people to join us. This movement is the movement, and it's not later, it's right now.
Now, thank you so much for being in this fight with me. We're gonna save our country, and all together we are the flood. We're not sleeping on this one.
Well, I mean, it's hard not to be inspired by your story, Jessica, and the fact that, and Cliff, I mean, honestly, Jessica, what you've done to build this movement and to lay the seeds for battling Donald Trump, none of us will ever not be inspired by it. So thank you for your leadership. Cliff and I met at the rally at the mall in DC. And as soon as we met, we said, we're going to be friends, because it really takes it. We're built very similarly. And I'm just excited. I'm excited to be in this with my friends and to call you guys my friends. I'm really excited that we get to show up for each other and with each other every day, and that we get to do this together, because years and years from now, when we're sitting there talking about the fight that we had to save American democracy, it will be really nice to know that we did it out of friendship and love for each other, and that was our motivation, And so it's really nice to be on with you guys because, like, this is the crew, guys. This is the
Yeah.
people.
Oh, yeah.
These are the people that are doing the talking behind the scenes to make everything you see happen, because none of this stuff happens organically. So please give to these wonderful people. Watch this show, this space. This is the center of this movement, and we're going to come back here and tell you what's going on constantly.
Fascists feed on fear, and it's time to starve them.
Right.
Deal. Fast. We're going into a fast. All right, my friends. Love you so much. I will see you again soon. I'll see you on Sunday. See you on Sunday.
Hey,
See you on
guys.
Sunday. Bye.
Thank you, everybody, so much for joining us and Into Overtime. Such a great Friday night with Cliff and Carlos and you. This week, because you've been asking me for so long, finally opened up memberships on the Jessica Denson YouTube channel. You guys know I'm not like a podcaster. I'm just here because I have a voice and a message that needs to go out. But I have finally determined and decided that I think I can handle memberships, and you've been asking me for them for so long. So check them out. There's some different levels. I think one of them has like a members only live chat, and I was thinking I would launch the members only live chat on this Sunday at the Media March. So check out those memberships if you're interested. Thank you so much, as always, for your support. You know, it means the world. You know, you can support my work directly at thejessicadenson.com/donate. You can buy merch at thejessicadenson.com. I love you guys so much. Have a wonderful weekend. As always, let your light shine.